How are you guys doing? Thank you. Such a spontaneous audience. I love it. I love it. It's great to see people's faces in real life, not on Zoom. Are you happy about that? Thank you. So we'll ask some questions at the end. You have a chance to ask Caroline any questions. I'm so excited to talk to you, Caroline. Welcome to Copenhagen.
Thanks very much.
So today is a huge anniversary for you, and we just discovered this literally 3 minutes ago. Exactly 4 years ago today, September 19, 2018, you came to the office for the first time as a woman.
Yes.
You had been living for 49 years as a man.
Yes.
How does it feel?
Fabulous. That day 4 years ago was the first day in my life as myself, as Caroline, as a woman, as who I am. And today, 4 years afterwards, I'm more happy than ever. Being myself couldn't be more, wonderful in life.
And you are not just a regular employee. You are the CEO of a big insurance company in Sweden.
Yes.
So this is at the very top of your career,
Yes.
and you'd worked a long time to build this career, and you only had the courage at 49 to do it.
Yes, I mean, the norms can be very strong. I was brutally scared. What would happen if I broke away from my male persona? You know, that white, male, heterosexual, graphical figure that I thought was the thing that I needed to cling on to actually keep my role in life.
I have to say, please join me in giving her a big round of applause and happy 4th anniversary for living as herself. Isn't that awesome? I want to show you a picture of your first 49 years and who you are today, so the audience can really appreciate this transformation. Let's show the picture. There.
Yeah.
Describe the differences we see. Isn't that incredible? Describe the differences between these two pictures.
I mean, these are actually two CEO portraits of a big insurance company in Sweden. And it's the same person. It's me in both pictures. On the first side, that's how I lived my life for the first almost 50 years of my life. But I wasn't a happy person. I fulfilled all normative criteria how a CEO should look like. You know, the right shade of gray in the suit, the right amount of gray color in your hair to project that wisdom, and the right color of your shirt. It was perfect. I was privileged, but I wasn't a happy person. Now I am a happy person, living at myself.
Congratulations. And you have since pivoted from ICA, the insurance company in Sweden, and you're now a partner and chairwoman at Wall Street VC.
Yes.
Wall Street VC. How does your experience determine the kind of investing that you do, the kind of founders you're investing in? How does that inform your perspective in your new line of work?
Well, I'm very interested in finding and supporting underrepresented founders. We're talking women, we're talking people of color, we're talking of founders off the beaten track. Because I've spent so many years of my life living according to the norm, networking with people like me, who look like me, have the same education as me, who have been part of the same privileged structures as I've been. And now finally, when I see the structural differences, the structural inequalities we still have in our society, it is a mission in life to me to help underrepresented founders. There's so much to do there.
And you said that when you were living as a man, you thought you knew all about diversity.
Yes.
But it took living as a woman to truly understand.
Yes, I mean, if you have invited me 4 years ago, like the picture on the left, I would have been a very confident guy talking here, you know, brawling about, rambling along, talking about DEI like I knew it all. It only took me a few months to live as a woman to understand that I completely gotten it wrong. And it was not because I was myself treated differently, but it was all the women around me who actually included me as one of them. And they told me the whole story, how difficult it had been to actually be heard, all the jargon that was so difficult, how difficult it would be to make a career. And I asked them, why didn't you tell me that before when I lived as a man? And they were like, don't you see? You were a man, you would not have understood. And if I've told you, they said, about all the problems, you would have seen me as the problem. And that is unfortunately quite true, because I had a rather, masculine, Darwinistic leadership style. Business is it's a game for the tough, and either you're tough and you're allowed to be in the game, or
That's why you assume that that's because you were tough, that's why you rose to the top.
Yes.
That's why you were CEO,
Yes.
you were all
Yes.
these things conventionally successful.
Yes. I did all the things I was supposed to do. Career advancing moves, playing the game.
So what are the biases that you maybe assumed or were not even aware of, that was maybe a blind spot as a white heterosexual male in a society that values that and rewards you for it?
Well, the biggest bias is that I wasn't aware of my privileges as a white heterosexual man. I thought that the playing field was even. I now understand that the playing field isn't even. In many cases, white heterosexual men play a home game and others play an away game. Why? I could dress any way I wanted. I could behave any way I wanted. I was never questioned on my competences or my authority. As a woman, you need to look in a certain way. You need to limit your behaviors, not being too emotional, for example, in order to just have a chance to get across with your point. So I realized that the breadth of available appearances were much wider as a man than it is as a woman. And I also understand that there are many women who don't think it's worth the effort to try to rise to the top in businesses, because that the sacrifices are too big and that there are other values in life. And that's a huge loss of competence for our businesses. And I want to rectify that. That's why I want to find and support underrepresented founders within the criteria of what my investment company, Wellstreet, invests in.
When you look back in the first 49 years of your life and right now, and you have the support of your wife, you have the support of your kids, how are they adjusting to who you are now?
Surprisingly well. Of course, it's a big thing for a family, and me changing a gender role. But what surprised me the most, and what also makes me happy, is that my children, for them it was a complete non-issue. They just tried, of course you should live as who you are. And I asked them why, okay, do you want to call me mom or dad? Of course you're our dad. Okay, then I'm still their dad. I'm quite happy to be their dad.
But in the wider society, were you afraid of facing transphobia as the first leader, a business leader in the Nordics, at the level which you were, to speak openly about your gender transition and to change?
Yes. Being a white male CEO, successful CEO at 50 years of age, I had a lot of ego in that, in my socioeconomic position. And that socioeconomic position was kind of me. I didn't, I was that successful person. I didn't think I would be able to mentally survive losing that position. That's why I clinged on to the norm for so long. Because I was afraid to be ridiculed, to be bullied, to be, not accepted in the society. Because traditionally, people have not been kind to those who break norms. And no one had done what I'd done beforehand. So I was genuinely afraid up until I reached the point to say that I just need to do it, whatever the consequences might be.
Right. I love what you talk about, including populations that have been traditionally underrepresented, that even VCs don't see.
Yes.
And do you have a few examples that you can talk about how you are being deliberate and intentional in including these kinds of people in your work?
Yeah, first and foremost, representation does matter. Because if you're a white guy as a VC and you appear on stage and say, we're an investor, please come on and pitch, you typically attract people who fancy that same jargon.
Right.
People who look like yourself. And people who don't look like yourself or are not accustomed to that jargon may find it intimidating. When I went public on LinkedIn earlier this year, say now I'm a VC, will attract founders, 90% of all pitches that came through my LinkedIn mailbox were from women or other underrepresented founders. And that tells me that representation does matter. So you as a venture capital company need to have a diverse set of general partners who show face in society, because that in itself will attract the full breadth of founders in your target markets. It doesn't, I mean, who you are means more than you can think.
You were recently invited by the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, to join the G7 Gender Equality Advisory Council.
Yes, yes.
Tell me about why that's important and what do you hope to achieve with this?
Well, we can actually, not only on a national level, but also on an EU or G7 level, build international funds that actually invest in venture capital funds targeting underrepresented founders. We already have in the EU the European Innovation Agency, who does that to some extent. And we should do even more, because the amount of capital that goes to female founder teams is way too small. Like across Europe and the US, we all know only like 2% of venture capital goes to female-only founder teams. And we need to accelerate that change. And we need also governmental support in driving money, because ownership is power. Unless we start changing the ownership of venture capital funds, unless we start to promote more GPs who are women, and we won't see that change happen.
There are a lot of people here who are either investors or who are looking for funding. While you're at TechBBQ, are there specific industries that Wall Street VC invest in? Are there specific people you're interested in? Are there tips for the audience you want to give? I'm sure they'll appreciate that. Let's just go into the practicalities.
I mean, Wall Street is a seed stage investor in the Nordic region. Our sweet spot is a couple of €100,000, and we invest in scalable technologies. My personal sweet spot is fintech, because I spent 25 years in the financial services industry, so I have pretty good grip on financial services and insurance. But we're happy to look at any scalable technologies in the seed stage. We prefer to be the first venture capital investor. We can happy to take co-investor, but we want to be first because we work very hands-on with the founders.
All right. I want to bring up that picture again, if we could bring up the picture of the before and after, because I want for you to draw some lessons. In the last 4 years living as Caroline, and the first 49 living as Carl, which are the lessons you've learned, the difficulties or the challenges? I imagine even changing your tech footprint. Do you change your Facebook name? Do you change your LinkedIn and stuff like that? What's been different in the last 4 years?
Well, 4 years ago when I did the transition, I mean, there are 1,000 practical things. For example, a whole new wardrobe. And yes, the morning routine does take some longer time.
You spent a long time trying to figure out that wardrobe, didn't you?
Yeah, you know, women are always judged on how they look. And I had sort of very little preparation time before I went on stage.
I did prepare very little for this, I can assure you, as you can see.
But also trying to figure out how the mechanisms work also when women interact, because I had a rather masculine way of interacting with other guys. I'm very grateful that I've been sort of included by other women in the sort of women's world. But also how to organize ourselves, how to drive change, how to actually start get things moving. It took me some time to actually understand how difficult it had been for other women who spent their entire life as a woman to actually get to the position they are. And while doing my work as a partner in a VC firm, I also would like to advance these issues of basically inclusive leadership style. Because in my own masculine CEO leadership style, it was really my way or the highway, which didn't give much room for people of different opinions. I love the differences between people. I love the differences between people. That is what gives us business benefit. That drives the next generation of innovation.
What are your tips for people here who run companies, who run organizations, who lead teams, about leading authentically as yourself, based on your own experience, based on what you thought you knew and what you've learned over the past 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, as a male CEO, I had a lot of ego, and I thought that in order to be authoritative, I couldn't show weakness because it's not normative for men to show weakness. You appear on stage, you boast about all your strengths, and you're very you think highly of yourself. But that doesn't make you an interesting leader. What makes you an interesting leader is to be aware of your weaknesses and talk about them, and actually inform your team, I know I have several weaknesses, and I think I know about them, but please help me with them. But if you show vulnerability, if you talk to people what's difficult in your own life, you invite other people to be vulnerable also. If you're authentic, talk about basically your whole life, not that ego masculine persona, you can have so much richer communication with your people around yourself, because then you invite others to show weaknesses and be authentic.
Like I mentioned near the beginning, you are the first senior business leader in the Nordics to openly talk about your gender transition and to live as a transgender individual, but there's still very few people in the similar space. You've become now a speaker and a public speaker and a leader in this space, an inspiration to a lot of people. Do you find that people tell you how much of a light you have been to them?
Yeah, well, I receive a lot of appreciation, and yes, I do public speaking on this topic, because I think that for me as a male leader, it was a huge blind spot. I genuinely thought that we had an equal workplace with equal opportunities, but the playing field is not even. The structural disadvantages with norms and biases hinder us today from utilizing the entire competence pool in our businesses. And that prevents us from reaching the next level of innovation. Yes, technology is great, and we can dream about going to Mars or wherever, but unless we create a culture, an inclusive culture in our businesses, that we allow people to be themselves and bring their whole self to work, and show the whole breadth of competences, we will not achieve our goals. So leadership is more important than ever. Leadership is not boasting about and pointing a direction. Leadership also being very empathetic with other people, allowing people to be themselves.
Bring your whole selves to work. That is such a powerful statement. I have room for questions, and I made an executive decision not to use Slido because you're here in real life. So I want to hear your real voices and actually engage with you. So if you have a question, raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you, and please introduce yourself and ask Caroline your question. All right, microphone coming up at some point. I promise we have 2 questions here at the front. And I promise a microphone will magically appear for you. Okay, not yet, but I promise it's coming. After 2 years plus of Zoom, I didn't want to do the whole virtual thing. I wanted to... Here, please raise your hand. There. Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Leave it to you.
You want to turn it on?
Independent, amazing.
Hello.
Fantastic. Please stand, yes.
Hi, my name is Julia. I haven't really formulated my question yet, but should I hold it closer?
Yes.
Okay. So I have this, as a gay woman in a very big working place, I often feel like an alien in terms of the sexual games that go on. There are some flirtation methods that heterosexual people use all the time. And as soon as they found out that I'm gay, there is a weird, almost distancing towards me, because they don't really know how to handle that they can't play the game the way that they're used to. I don't know if you have any tips or insights. How do you distance yourself? Or I don't know, how do you not get bothered by it, I guess? Because I do find it a little bit difficult sometimes. Yeah.
Could you repeat?
Yeah, I can repeat the question if I understood correctly, that there's a lot of, in most organizations, workplaces, there's certain flirtations that heterosexual men are used to, but when they find out you're gay, then they're kind of, they back off because they don't know how to relate with you. And if you have any tips about that.
Yeah. I mean, I know that many men are sort of, how they feel uncomfortable advancing on these issues because it's not their home turf. And, but again, bring the notion that this is about business education. Being educated about norms and biases is as important as being educated about strategy. And life is a continuous learning journey. And put it on the learning agenda for the company, because it is as important as any other technical skill. DEI learning should be on the agenda. So just hire an external speaker. Let's talk to them. Let's educate ourselves, because this has true value. And I know I wasn't maybe as receptive in my young age because I thought I knew it all, you know. But I mean, ask me afterwards. I'm happy to give you tips.
All right. Do we have another question in the audience? Fantastic. I love this. Real people with real voices, not on a screen. It's revolutionary.
Hello, my name is Trine. Can you hear me?
Yeah. A little closer, please.
I'll hold it closer. All right. I work in the field of diversity and inclusion. And I very often meet men who will ask me, they tell me, Trine, I feel afraid now because from my point of view, I'm a middle-aged man and everybody is hunting me. Everybody wants me to be the one to blame. And when I look into the statistics, I mean, in Denmark, we can't really say that we're a country with equal opportunities. And looking in global gender gap from the World Economic Forum, we're also going down the statistics. And I think we're 109 now,
right,
below Rwanda. So in my point of view, I can't really see why they are so scared now. But what are your point of view in this? Should men be afraid?
Should men be afraid? Because a lot of men feel threatened in this diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation.
4 years ago, or 5 years ago, when I was on my high point as a man, I must admit I felt a bit threatened when the topic of diversity or inclusion came on top. Why? Because I thought that maybe I needed to share my power, because I genuinely thought that I deserved that privileged position, because I worked so hard, you know, my studies, my degrees, all of my achievements, so I deserved that position. And now somehow I should share that. Why? But the thing is, the trick is that you need to convince them that this is not another or just a sustainability tick in the box thing. This is a business issue. You need to convince them that they will be more successful as business leaders if they become more skillful in bringing the full value of their leadership team. They will make better business decisions. The company will prosper, and they will be successful as leaders if they just advance these issues. So appeal to their ego. That's how you typically change normative men. Appeal to the ego.
I think somebody said that if you're used to being the dominant position, any equity or inclusion feels like an attack.
Yes.
That's just because the world is getting rebalanced and everybody's having an equal
chance. So you need
chance.
to convince them, good, if you're better than this, you will be more successful. You will achieve next level success of your company. Then they will listen.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Caroline Farberger, thank you so much. This has been incredible. And once again, happy 4th anniversary.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.